everybody. Welcome once again to Out of the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. I'm Robert Taylor, and if you frequently view our show, you know we try to bring you people on the show who are exceptional in their fields. We venture into the metaphysical realm, into the healing arts, and into the creative arts. And our guest today we've had on the show a couple of times, and he's always such a treat to have with us. His Holiness Swami Krishnapad, who is an Afro-American mystical guru, actually. And he has been an advisor to many of the government leaders in Africa. He has frequently met with Nelson Mandela. He has been a spiritual advisor to the United Nations. He's internationally well known. He's also an author of several books and is currently visiting us here in the Metro Detroit area and doing lots of workshops. So I'd like to welcome you once again to the show. Swami Krishnapad, welcome.
Very happy to be here in Detroit, and especially on your show.
Oh, thank you. It's so great to have you again.
Pleasure's ours.
And I didn't actually mention, but we're going to be doing two.
Okay.
Because when you come in, you know, there's...
Sounds adventurous.
It's, yeah. So tell us a little bit about your visit, what you've been doing.
I've been in the area for about 6 days. And I had a chance to speak at the Psychic Fair.
Is that the Body, Mind, and Spirit?
Body, Mind, and Spirit Festival. And we made a lot of our books available at that particular time, and met so many interesting people.
You were telling me it was so popular, the talk, that about 100 people couldn't get in.
This is what we heard. 5 minutes before I started speaking, literally the whole auditorium was full.
Wow. And
I was quite impressed to see, the hunger that people have in this area.
For the spiritual topics.
That's right.
Yeah. Now, you're quite unique because you take the spiritual knowledge. You know, when people talk about spiritual knowledge, they think it's something very out there and,
yes.
For people in India or something. You have really taken, and in your books we also see this, you take that knowledge and you show people how they can apply it in every area of their lives.
That's right, because often there's a lack of healthy integration. There's some people who pursue taking care of the physical aspect of their existence. They just address the physicality. There are others who are involved in the psychic realms, and then there are those who are looking at the spiritual scheme of things, but they're not so grounded in looking at the physical or the psychological, emotional, and psychic. So we try to form a nice marriage between all of these different aspects so that people can access their spirituality while at the same time being very practical and dealing with contemporary concerns and issues so that they are literally solving material problems with spiritual solutions.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that that is the ultimate solution, is a spiritual solution, whether it be mental or physical problems that we may have?
Ultimately, because we are spiritual beings who are having a material experience, and our eternal essence is spiritual. So we are using a mind and intelligence. We're using senses just as we use a car or use a particular house. So most important is what is going on inside, because everything that happens externally is coming from an internal connection. Mm-hmm. We do the internal processing, reflection, and then something happens. Certain things manifest. So as people are able and willing to address the internal, then they can deal more significantly with the external.
Yeah, it seems that all material manifestation comes from somebody's internal process.
That's right.
Inventions, everything.
And especially consciousness. A certain type of consciousness, for instance, produces racism or tribalism, or causes a person to operate and interact in an abusive way, whether it's spouse abuse or elderly abuse or child abuse. And a certain type of consciousness produces humanism or philanthropic type of mood. A certain type of consciousness accesses the religious and the sacred. And a certain type of consciousness accesses the transcendental.
Mm-hmm.
When I first got involved in these kind of pursuits over 30 years ago, I was studying international law at Princeton, And I was very much interested in sort of revolutionary politics. So at a certain point in my life, I was kind of in a dilemma of considering whether it's best to go into the international arena and international law, perhaps working at the United Nations in these areas. But then it dawned on me that one can keep on trying to look at some of the problems from an external point of view, but really the real issue is the interior, not the exterior. The real issue is people are so much not using their higher potentials, accessing their loving natures. And because of that, there's more movement based on lust rather than love. So it dawned on me that the better thing to do was to put energies into things that could help in raising consciousness.
And I must admit, I must say, you were saying there that you were contemplating going into all those different fields of international law, etc., United Nations. You ended up doing all that anyway,
Yeah,
right?
that was quite interesting.
Yeah.
I thought I was sort of putting those things behind me, considering that now I'll become involved in contemplative things and introspection, and literally not being so much involved with basic secular concerns.
Yeah.
But really, when we think about spirituality, it is not something that one wants to do for one's own self-gratification or self-actualization, but it's really something that we do so that we can serve others better. There may be times in our life that we need to be away to be able to become more solidified in our understandings. So I was like 10, 15 years traveling around the world, but being more sort of in reclusive type of environments.
Yeah.
And then later, the Supreme Lord arranged that I would have many opportunities to meet with, political leaders and educational leaders, business leaders, leaders in the medical profession, so that we could try to bring this kind of knowledge, give them these additional variables to address the issues, that are facing the global community.
Now you've been very influential in Africa, even with Nelson Mandela and the president of Uganda, etc. Right? They treat you very much as a spiritual advisor.
I move around the world quite a lot. Sometimes every 2 weeks or so I'm in a different country.
Yeah.
And we are involved, of course, with the masses, as well, as those who are in leadership positions. When one wants to be about creating a global mind shift, then it is significant to try to reach people in all different sectors. I spend a lot of time in Africa. First, 30 years back when I started getting more involved in these areas, I did most of my work in Eastern Europe countries, Hungary, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Russia, etc. And then from there, I spent more concentrated time in Africa. And then I kind of came back to America, and then from America I made this my base as I go to other parts of the world.
Now about 30 years ago, that was a bit of a dangerous experience, going into those Eastern Bloc countries.
It was quite dangerous. And we could write a couple of books just on some of those intriguing experiences.
Yeah.
Being incarcerated before.
Yeah,
so.
wow, yeah.
But still, the fascinating thing, when you deny people things that are most natural for them, that the hunger will obviously still be there.
Yeah.
So it's so fascinating in those earlier days to see how eager people were for embracing some type of spirituality.
And now it's just mushroom, doesn't it?
That's right.
It's amazing. So, what's the #1 problem on the planet?
The #1 problem is that humankind has more and more are trying to claim proprietorship of things, of people, of money, of organizations, of institutions, where this is creating sort of a self-centeredness rather than being more aware that everything belongs to God and that we are caretakers rather than owners or controllers. And as we analyze and appreciate that we are caretakers, then we can take care of things the way the real owner will be satisfied. Just like we're discussing in many of our programs on relationships. And we're discussing that relationships are sort of at an all-time low. even though the means and technology for communication is better than we've ever seen at this time in, in human dispensation, at the same time, mutual intelligibility, people's genuine ability to communicate is going down. We see an increase in, divorce everywhere, an increase in tribal conflicts, racial conflicts, religious oriented conflicts. A lot of this has to do with a kind of an in-group, out-group type of mentality. And even when people come together in partnership, in matrimony, there's still more of a tendency that they're coming to see what they can take from the connection rather than what they can give.
As in prenuptial agreements.
Exactly, exactly. So we're emphasizing that our real growth that can help our relationships and help the planet is when people can become more genuinely selfless, compassionate, and be able to honor things in the way that of not being the controller or the ultimate owner, but honoring those things in a natural way and giving recognition back to God.
Now, of course, this kind of mentality, separatist mentality, our group against your group, etc., is that due to some misconception of who the self is, would you say?
Oh, distinctly. It's due to fear, it's due to insecurity, and it's due to, surely, poor fund of knowledge and understanding who we really are. When people are dealing with threats of scarcities, when people are feeling attacked and offended and not cared for, then they react in very bizarre ways. When someone feels protected and loved, sometime back we were discussing this at some of the yearly medical conventions, and we were looking at what happens to the mind, what happens to the body when a person does not feel loved. It's been proven that people who do not feel loved, they're 4 to 5 times more susceptible to every type of disease, and they're about that number, about 5 times more susceptible to premature death. When people do not feel loved, it sends a message to the hypothalamus in the brain that connects with the neurotransmitters that send messages throughout the entire body. So when a person does not feel loved or when they're feeling alienated, it's like the neurotransmitters are attacking various parts of the body.
It's amazing. There was a researcher who went all over the European countries with regard to heart trouble. And he simply sat at restaurants in Sweden, Germany, England, Spain, France, and Italy. And you know, those Latin, the France, Spain, Italy have a far less degree of heart trouble than in England, Sweden, Germany. And so he just observed how many times people touched each other at a table during like an hour session. And places like Italy, you know, they were 80 times, you know. And in the northern countries, practically no contact.
There are scientific studies from Harvard University, Stanford, and some of the other medical colleges and universities. And they've categorically found that where people are touching each other, sharing this greater sense of compassion, affection, and honoring, you know, another person's existence, that it brings up more creativity. It helps psychologically as well as physiologically. That one's health is better, and one's life is longer. One lives longer.
Yeah. So you're saying that the problem really is that we're seeing things in terms of differences as opposed to similarities.
That's right.
As in terms of the physical and the, yeah.
See, the reductionistic way that most people are living now, you know, in modern day society, causes them to function and look more toward accessing commodities rather than experiencing a sense of community. As we are social entities, we're social beings, we really need to be with other people. We really need a sharing experience. We really need to feel a sense of value from how others appreciate us. And when we look at ancient civilizations, individuals understood themselves to be of value and to be important based on the way they contributed to the society.
Mm-hmm.
And the society sent back distinct messages to them. But now we're becoming more individualistic, more egocentristic,
Mm-hmm.
and we're more concerned with what we can experience for the moment and not what the implications, ramifications are of our actions.
Mm-hmm.
And this happens with the individual, it happens with the institutions, the corporations. You'll see how so many things are happening now from nation to nation that may give some immediate benefits, but then sometime later we see all types of negative fallout because people are not planning based on what is really best for the community.
Even, you know, one thing that's becoming quite a big concern, and one of the reasons at schools why they're introducing school uniforms. Children are ostracized because they're not wearing Reebok or, you know, Tommy Hilfiger. So if the kid doesn't have the right outfit on, you know, they're just not accepted. They're just, you know, considered to be outcast. Isn't that interesting?
It's very interesting. It shows why so many of the kids are struggling with all types of hypertension, you know, attention to deficit disorders and violence. In America, recent statistics report that the average day in America, about 150,000 weapons are brought into the American school system. And in some schools, junior high, and in some high schools, but especially junior high, 25% of the children are actually taking Ritalin. So when you analyze what's happening, is that our institutions that are supposedly designed for really producing quality people are really in trouble. And the students now, we see, and even sometimes some of the good schools, they're in such fear because of violence.
Do you think a lot of the attention deficit disorder is because of the exposure to violent media?
Oh, beyond a doubt. There are studies that are proving this.
Because so many of these kids, the whole day is spent in front of the computer, and what are they doing? They're playing war games.
Yes. Or television, or other types of video things. In America now, the average person's watching TV about 5 hours a day, 5 to 6 hours a day. If you look at the amount of violence, promiscuous things that are coming across, when we watch television, it puts the mind in a slight hypnotic state. It's called an alpha state. And when the mind is in an alpha state, one is about 4 times more susceptible to whatever the influence is.
It's like hypnosis, isn't it?
It's exactly.
Yeah.
You know, just think, you know, people are watching this program, and so many people are sitting on their favorite chair.
They're having a spiritual experience.
And they're taking their, you know, wonderful snacks, and so they're very relaxed. So what comes across, there's less sort of scrutinizing the subject matter. There is less deciphering what is to accept, what is not, even more than when just in a normal conversation or when there is a physical association. When it's something that is of a higher nature, that's good, because it penetrates and people can use it and act upon it at a later time. But so many things are intruding into people's consciousness that is very unhealthy. Imagine how many things people are bringing into their living room through the video or through the television screen that they would never want in their house. But those things are coming through in a way that's penetrating their consciousness even more than if it was just in the house itself. But as the mind is sort of relaxed, somewhat in a state of slight trance, then so much intrusion is taking place.
Even the fact you may not turn on any of these shows, it's in the ether.
Yes.
Exactly. We're all getting bombarded by that stuff.
Just like some of the alternative healthcare practitioners, they're amazed as sometimes they engage in the massage therapy or acupuncture, acupressure, other types of some modalities. They find that people who, particularly living in the cities and the passionate areas, that their nervous system is so shot. The energy flows, the chi, the prana within the body is so disturbed. Because much of the technology is not really neutral. So much of the telephone wires, the cellular phones, the satellites, electromagnetic effects, is just affecting the consciousness, the subtle body, and the nervous system.
sounds like that could be a big influence on cancer.
Yes. Why are we finding heart disease and cancer increasing everywhere, especially where there's more technology and more sort of advanced lifestyles? There are places in the world where practically no one ever gets heart disease.
Yeah.
But it has a lot to do with this sort of fast pace that we're living.
Yeah.
A lot of the toxic waste and the bombardments, things that we're experiencing due to rapid growth and globalization, of markets, and where we are not feeling that we are important, or we're being too stressed out by doing so many things without really doing things that are bringing nourishment to the inner faculties.
So the big question, what's your recommendation? How would you recommend to people how to add that spiritual element in their lives? Read some of these books, maybe.
Oh, yeah.
We should take a look at a couple of your books, too.
Okay.
What would you recommend to people?
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is one of the titles of one of our books. Is called Transforming Lust into Love. This book right here.
It's a lovely cover, too. I love that cover. Yeah. That's neat.
This is in a series. We're working now on our Spiritual Warrior 3. This book and some of our books have been translated now into 7 different languages.
Wow.
And they're being very much appreciated internationally because people are constantly dealing with these relationship issues. Or people are constantly finding that even though they did all the orthodox things, they're not happy. They went to the universities, they got good jobs, they're married, they have so many assets, different things are there, sometimes a little famous, a little popular, but at the end of the day, they're unhappy. And they're wondering what is going wrong. I've been discussing in several television programs a report put out by the World Health Organization. And they have given the international community cognizance that the way present-day society is now, the way people are functioning in present-day society, that they're seeing that after the next 10 years, one of the greatest problems that it's going to face humankind will be mental disease, mental disorders. And one of the reasons is because depression is on the rise in every single city practically on the globe. And it has to do with people being really disappointed. Disappointed with their religious leaders, their political leaders, their academic leaders, disappointed with their wives, their husbands, their children, and beginning to question what is life all about. And so that brings on more suicide and homicide also.
So what people actually obviously need is there's got to be some positive answer out there.
That's right. That's right. They need to
And
be
they
more
don't
holistic,
seem, and a lot of people have been disappointed spiritually. They've not been given satisfying knowledge.
That's right.
Yeah.
Because due to this sort of situation again, take society, many times the religious organizations, while they are dealing with the many, they're forgetting the one.
Yeah.
Many of the religious organizations, they put so much emphasis on means justifies the end. And so they will gradually forget what their goals are. And even worse, often, the protectors of the theology, the priest, are becoming impotent and deviant. And so as they become deviant, they begin to alter the theology. They change the text, or they begin to speak on issues and things in a way that supports their own idiosyncratic tendencies and deviations. And gradually this gets institutionalized, and it begins to create all kind of fragmentations within the religious communities.
They're not walking the talk.
Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. So on a daily basis for people, what could people do in their lives that could improve the quality on all levels?
First, people should be more careful about what they're internalizing. Be more sensitive to what they see, what they hear, who they associate with. Sound vibration is very important.
Nice point.
People are trying to involve themselves in higher conscious activities or be a higher entity, love in action. Then they must be careful, more selective about their associations. Must be more particular about what they do with this machine, this physical body.
Mm-hmm.
As we take proper care of the physical body, then we'll be able to get much more significant, effective type of reciprocation from our physical bodies.
Yeah.
But when we don't, then we will find ourselves under great problems physically because of the physiological aspects, mentally, and we'll feel like we're spiritually bankrupt.
Mm-hmm.
We have to look closer and see the things that we're doing, if they're really helping us to develop a greater sense of integrity, they're helping us to access a greater sense of ethics, morality. We have to look and see if the things that we're doing, are there things that we are ready to do if we could consider that God is watching us? Would God feel good about what we're doing? See, often we take things in such an impersonal way. We don't look at the results so clearly, the implications, ramifications. But if we look clearly as we're thinking, I'm talking like this, I'm going to arrange this, I'm going this place, I'm going to do this. God watching me, would he be pleased?
Mm-hmm.
Would Mother, Father, God be pleased at what I am doing? When we can distinctly know and say, you know, he would not be pleased, we can understand there's a need for reorientation,
Mm-hmm.
for transformation.
Well, we're almost at the end of this show, and I wanted to let everybody know that we are going to do another show with Swami Krishnapad. We're going to be specifically focusing on spirituality in the workplace. And for more information about Swami Krishnapad's books, and there are many wonderful titles dealing with all different aspects of life, you can contact us here right at the War Memorial at 881-7511. Or do you have one of those www.com, Swami Krishnapad?
Yes, we can be reached on internet, www.ifast.net.
So it's IFAST?
That's right, IFAST, iFast.
Okay, iFast. So www.ifast.net.
Right. The idea is we want people to fast from ignorance, from illusion, from exploitation, and from manipulating others in an unhealthy way.
That's beautiful.
And to feast on love and divine connections.
We need some more people like you hanging out on this planet. And I also wanted to let you know, if you're interested, I'm doing a lecture here on May the 17th. It's called What's It All About? Why Are We Here? I've been giving out false information. It's from 7 to 8:30, not 7:30 to 8:30. And it's $15 and $12 for students. Once again, thank you, Swami Krishnapad. He's going to come back next time. And thank you for joining us on Out of the Ordinary.